and the show team, Michael, Jeff, Matt, are all at their posts, and we are ready to go, Debbie, with a part 2 from yesterday.
We are part 2 of talking about reality shows, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we had full phone lines yesterday, lots of feedback, lots of communication you guys sent to us about reality TV shows, all sorts of shows, and the entertainment reality shows, the more athletic ones, the more life challenges, reality shows, all sorts of things. We want to hear it from all angles. We want to have a very robust discussion about this, and we want to walk away from this part 2. We're not going to be doing part 3 because tomorrow is our Whom or What Are You Praying For show. It's probably our most popular show, so we're definitely dedicated to prayer. So this will be it for today. So we've really got to pick up where we left off yesterday, hopefully with Emily, who is the entertainment lawyer, who's going to be calling back because I didn't even get to ask her all the questions I wanted to ask her. And we're going to be continuing the conversation. So the number to dial is 833-288-3986. 833-288-3986.
Okay. Fill up those phone lines. As Debbie said, they were completely full yesterday. And when that happens, and we have a ton of social media to get to and some emails as well. By the way, you can post on social media if you're watching the video stream on EWTN Catholic Radio Facebook or YouTube channels. You can email us, take2@EWTN.com. We are open to getting text messages. Those come in to us you text the letters EWTN to 55000. Wait for a response. There might be a small data rate. You just put in your first name and your comment about reality TV. Are they really real? Why are they so popular? Have you kind of gotten hooked on one maybe? Maybe you've sort of sworn them all off in your life. 833-288-3986.
And just real quickly, we want you to call in, or you can email us at take2@EWTN.com. And we're receiving a lot of emails because a lot of you want to be part of our addiction book that we are putting together with your help and your stories. So if you want to be part of that project, please email us at take2@EWTN.com. It's through EWTN Publishing. We're super excited. It's going to be out hopefully early next year. So we have to get to the interviews and the writing of it. Jerry and I are going to be writing it, but we're using all of the interviews, 25 plus interviews of our Take Two family to help us really present addiction in a whole new way, the kind of the Take Two way, right? Because we look at it from all different angles. So just send us an email and say you'd like to be part of the project, take2@EWTN.com. And Jerry, if I may just say, we are getting a lot of folks visiting standtalltoday.com, standtalltoday.com. We have a very, very growing list of life coaches, Catholic life coaches, faith-based life coaches, Christian coaches, to help with all the family dynamics. We're covering everything, folks. And we've got, I just wanted to say this because a lot of people are interested. Yes, we still have our Stand Tall coffees that are available there, and Angelic Aroma is available there. Yes, some people were asking me last night because there's been a lot of talk this week about angels, which Jerry, how much I love that. Mm-hmm. And Angelic Aroma is there. Start buying your Christmas gifts now. StandTallToday.com. Just because I just love that. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I have like 6 bags of that fantastic coffee with saintly savor and angelic aroma and disciple decaf. I just love it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people do as well. So, yeah, absolutely. A lot of things to let you know about here on the program, but most importantly is the part 2 of our program on reality TV. We had a lot of social media comments yesterday. Michael M., who is a faithful viewer on YouTube. Hey, Michael. He says, I don't watch TV as a rule. So he doesn't have, much experience with many of these shows because he doesn't watch TV. Kate said, these are both YouTube comments. Kate said, I wish reality TV would go away. I don't watch it. Honestly, when I do watch TV, I watch reruns of Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Perry Mason, Matlock, and The Twilight Zone. So there's some oldies but goodies right there, Debbie.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we got more like from Deborah and from Wayne and Laura and the others and Matt and Timoteo. Yep, keep adding to that list. We will get to you in this part 2 of talking about reality shows. I did check out a couple of them last night, and it's so true what Emily was saying and the others about, the idea of really using alcohol, a lot of alcohol, to have them lose their inhibitions and to really just display some really kind of, it just, how do I say this? It was like kind of the character changed, right in front of your eyes, and you're thinking, wow, this is for everybody to see and everybody to criticize and everybody to judge. It's just not good. It's not a good representation of people and their lives and their humanity. Some of these, I just went and scanned the cable channels last night to see what was out there, and I was just like, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. If this is what people are using as entertainment.
Yeah. Well, this thought just struck me as well. I just simply put it out as a little one of my musings. I wonder if this might be an element or a part of why this happens. We have kind of an epidemic today of people not knowing who they are, what they're made for, not knowing God's love, not knowing self-love, a proper self-love, Debbie. And I wonder if, putting themselves out there for all the world to see, like you said, is a way for them to at least try in some way to garner admiration, respect, adulation, things like that. I don't know. For some that may be the case, probably not for all, but that just kind of came to my mind. And so I thought I'd put that out there for consideration.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons why we do, we do have the Ministry of Life Coaching, because that a lot of people do come to us with, a lot of these feelings of unworthiness, regret, guilt, shame, all sorts of things. And they really can't live out their life with passion and purpose and a great understanding of how much God loves them. I know I've been there, and I've felt that many times. So, folks, we can do this together. This is the Take Two family. Let's journey together talking about reality shows today on this part 2. Emily is back. Our entertainment lawyer is back. I'm so glad we're going to get to her. I have a list of questions. 833-288-3986. Please join us for this very interesting conversation about reality shows today.
Hey, this is Michael O'Neill, the Miracle Hunter. I'll be delving into the fascinating world of miracles and taking you on a hunt that explores the greatest mysteries and marvels of the Catholic Church. I'll be examining what constitutes a miracle, how miracles are investigated and approved, and the role they play in the lives of the faithful. We'll look at the miracles of the Gospels and early Christianity, considering the claims of the miraculous in our own modern age.
The Miracle Hunter, Saturday at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio. 60 Seconds with Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen.
This universe of ours is a free universe. It is a universe of character making, of soul making. Almighty God has placed into our hands, think of it, the power to make ourselves saints or devils. It is up to us. There are some laws that we cannot disobey. For example, the law of gravitation and certain biological laws like circulation of blood. But in a moral universe, we are free either to obey the laws of God or to disobey them, just as we are perfectly free, for example, to obey the laws of health or to disobey them.
The people you know and trust are on EWTN.
What are your thoughts on what they call reality TV? Do you think it's really real? Do you have any experience of maybe participating in one? Actually, we have a social media comment from someone who was on a reality TV show, so we'll get to that momentarily. Wondering if maybe you have some thoughts on why it's so popular, just the craze. It just seems like every week a new sort of reality show or pseudo-reality show is coming out on TV. Why is that? We're just trying to have a constructive and fruitful conversation about this on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Your calls are coming up in a moment. First of all, though, I just want to issue this really heartfelt encouragement to anyone listening. If you would like to help to start a Catholic radio station in your area, you can do that. How do I know that? Because so many of the Catholic radio stations on the air right now were started by mortgage bankers and dental equipment lab operators and home builders, regular people just like the rest of us who don't have maybe a lot of radio experience, but there is help available, and that is from EWTN. All you have to do is email Steve at radio@ewtn.com, and you can find out how to start a Catholic radio station where you live, powered by the truth of the church and EWTN's dynamic radio programming. Again, that's Steve at radio@ewtn.com.
Beautiful. We love that. Okay, so yesterday we had Kathy in Houston was waiting to get on the air, Tom in New York, and there was others calling in, some from Maryland. Please call back, and Matt will happily put you to the front of the line. We're inviting you to please call back and join this conversation, because we have a lot to talk about reality TV shows and what's out there. We always remember on Take Two, we always talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. That's how it works. Not the old movie that you remember that. We're talking about the Take Two version. Okay, so Emily is up first, called back from Dallas, Texas, listening on the EWTN app, and she is an entertainment lawyer. She has some very unique insights, and we're glad to talk with her again. Hi, Emily. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be back on.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, you're super busy, and for you, for you to make this time for us, we're so grateful, and I know maybe Matt had forwarded you maybe some questions that I had. I didn't know if you got to see those. If not, I'll happily repeat those, and maybe that's the best way to start. What do you think?
Yes, well, I have the notes about the questions that you would like to ask, and a lot of them are about the individual participants in the shows. And I haven't had, let's say, experience with clients or anyone else dealing with spiritual or emotional impact of the show. Most of the people that I have experience with have been on, let's say, contest shows, and those are, even if you get on those are it's not generally a long-term thing, unless it's one of the things like American Idol where it goes on, for some time. If it's a one-time appearance on air, some of the things are just weekly, and maybe you go back, one time or something, and those are less impactful. And at that point, especially from my point of view, we're just getting ready for the increase in attention going to them. It's preparing social media, getting the songs in order legally and everything else. But I also do caution clients and try to make them aware of the potential pitfalls, let's say, of being in the limelight, which includes people saying things about you that aren't true, blaming you online. People could talk badly about your appearance or your talent or any number of things. And that kind of thing, it can be very challenging, of course, especially if someone is not well grounded in their faith. So a lot of some people who have been on the shows and contestants have had really bad experiences not being able to deal with what they perceive as rejection. And you may have heard this in the news last week that Facebook's own studies have shown that looking at Instagram is very negative to young girls' self-esteem. Of course, everyone's posting pictures that are well lighted and the best look, and you can't just look in the mirror and see that. Even if someone took a professional picture of you, it might look pretty close. So all of the things that can happen online, I think, are similar, analogous to some of the, I wouldn't say necessarily voyeurism, but the desire to watch others in their supposed, kind of quote, real lives. People just seem to have a desire to compare their own experiences or contrast them with people they may have known of, even if they're only famous for being on the shows. So sometimes, as some of your callers have mentioned, it's aren't we glad we're not like them, like watching a car crash as you go by, let's say. And we would hope as Christians that's not something that we would have an impulse for. But that is something that people watch for. And sometimes people have a kind of a rooting interest, which is understandable in the contest shows, but can also happen with the shows that are like relationship shows. And these are one of the more positive examples of how the participants can have a better experience. My mother's a fan of the shows. I believe it's a 90 Day Fiancé, or so. They have professional people help choose these potential mates and counsel them through relationship issues to try and help them deal with each other in a more peaceful, loving, mature way. And so those shows are nice because they're teaching skills that the viewers can also learn from and, possibly apply in their own life. So that's nice when you can see it's not just, let's say, an expert talking on TV on a documentary type of program, but you can view the challenges that a real regular person might deal with and try and glean something from those shows.
Beautiful. We were visiting with Emily in Dallas, who is an entertainment lawyer, and we are talking about reality shows here on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. As Debbie mentioned moments ago, there were a lot of you on the lines yesterday, and so we have a couple lines available right now. If you would like to join us, we'll be with Emily for a few more minutes, but there is plenty of room for you to get on the program today. The number to call is 833 288 EWTN, 833-288-3986. What are your thoughts on reality, quote-unquote, reality TV shows? Do you think they're just tightly scripted, heavily produced to achieve a certain outcome? Do you appreciate any of them? There are a lot of probably very, at least not harmful, maybe even helpful programs like Emily is pointing out. But please do join us, 833-288-3986. And Emily, I have a question. I know so much of what's on TV, not just reality shows, but there's this shock factor. They want to kind of shock people into watching them again or appreciating what they're putting out there or whatever. Are you able to share anything that you've discovered from either your clients that you've worked with or things that you've seen? Maybe the most shocking thing you've seen or heard that you can share on the air?
Let's see. In terms of reality shows, I guess we'll say on insider knowledge-wise, any of the contest kind of shows are not decided straight up. It's not just the judges, let's say, who can decide who goes through. The producers have a strong say in who gets to go through and have the final vote, if you will, actually. So if there's a contestant who is more, entertaining for the viewer, or would get better ratings, someone with more talent might not make it to the next stage. And there's a lot that is driven by the producers that we don't know from watching. So in terms of shocking stuff, there's even been some lawsuits about people, about some scenarios that have been set up for people to get humiliated, or otherwise. And some of the contestants, or not necessarily contestants, but participants in these shows, have suffered great emotional distress from their participation on the show. I mentioned yesterday I had a client who was approached to be on a show that was supposed to be about couples, sort of celebrity couples, and he was not in a relationship with anyone at the time. So, but that was, to be manufactured for on-air purposes. And interest, and I would say actually a spiritually related insight that I'd like to share is just on the business knowledge part of things. It came up when I went to my parents' house, and my mother was watching a show that had mediums, people trying to help people communicate with their dead loved ones. and she's a Catholic, and she's listening. She told me I could share this, and I was like, she hadn't even thought of the spiritual ramifications or the teachings of the church on trying to reach out to the dead. So I was concerned, and I mentioned that to her, and so that was something that she started to think about and reconsider the shows. But I was like, why are you watching this? And she said she loved how it made people feel good. People who were very sad before, that they would be told some things, and she liked to see that kind of what looked like healing, for these individuals who've been suffering grief. And like, how do they know so much? They seem to. Do they actually have some kind of, let's say, insight, that they are sharing with the participants on the show?
Right.
And I told her this is not something to get drawn in by, because when you are going to be on the show, this also goes for audience members who get your tickets in advance. Okay, they research you before you come, and even if they didn't look elsewhere, you could figure out so much about someone's life just from their social media, right? And their friends' social media and anything else. So they say, "Oh, I know this about you. Your relative is referring to this thing in your life," and they say, "Oh my gosh, how could that? This must be true." And it's like, no, they have assistants who go around and figure these things out, including visiting people's homes to look at things in the yard or house, or to see things that are not on social media, to give that extra air of credibility to it.
Right.
So,
right. Wow.
The spiritual dangers I'm sure you conveyed before about getting sucked into things like this. But I did want to point that out as something that is done for TV.
But Emily, you make a really good point, because like you were sharing about your mom, she just innocently wants to see people comforted and to be, that's just the beauty of who we are as Christians, right? We want people to be happy and whole and have, joy in their heart and peace in their lives. And so these shows, like you said, they've already done the research. They know who they're drawing in. They know who they are appealing to. And they're using those subtle ways. Jerry typed this over, and I was thinking the same thing. They're using those subtle ways to influence people. And for the most part, it may be quite harmless, but there's that area where it could really be spiritually, devastating, and it could be harmful in real serious soul ways. And so that's where we have to be really savvy and smart and alert about what we are taking into our minds and through visual senses and hearing. We have to be very careful. And so you make a really good point, Emily. We could easily be just kind of drawn into this and not even realizing we get so far down that road, and then we can say, wow, what happened? My whole life is a mess. Emily, you're amazing. Thank you so much. We wanted just real quickly, one of our listeners asked, they're out, a little bit outside of Dallas, if you could drop us an email with your contact information, Pt.2 at EWTN.com, in case anybody wants to get in touch with your services that you provide, Emily, as a lawyer, entertainment lawyer.
Sure.
If that would be great.
Of course.
Yeah. But
EmilyLawyer.com. It's being switched today, actually, but EmilyLawyer.com is the easy way. But
that's easy.
I will email
That's
you.
the easy way, right? Good.
Yeah.
But you know what, though? Here's the thing, Emily, you are putting it right into perspective of what we need to do. We just need to be really smart about this and look at and really see what's behind the scenes, what's driving it. Like you talked about, the producers and this and that. They know already. They know the outcome. It's for ratings. It's for this. It may not be the best one wins. It may be the most entertaining person wins, because that's what they are going to get more money for. So it's unfortunate that we exploit people this way, because these are people's lives and their gifts and talents, and it's unfortunate.
But just remember, there's a wizard behind the curtain as you view the veil, or don't view, because that's a good choice to make as well.
That's right. Emily, God bless you. Thank you for your time on the show yesterday and today, for making more time to be with us. We're so grateful for that.
Sure, you're welcome. Okay.
God bless. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, and Debbie, you were right on about that, the show that she was talking about, or maybe you mentioned it, people being, quote, comforted, by getting in touch with their deceased relatives and so forth. That is obviously strictly forbidden as a practice for Christians and really for all people. But the danger is, like you said, people will probably say, you know what, I want to experience that. They sort of watch the show long enough and they say, now I know how to do it. And then pretty soon you've got somebody sucked into this a very, very harmful, potentially eternally harmful practice. So, lot to look out for, a lot of things to pay attention to.
Yeah, and this is a great discussion we're having. It's just making us very aware of what's happening, especially behind the scenes with all these reality shows. So we want to hear from you. Please join us, 833-288-3986. Remember, this is your show, Take Two, with Jerry and Debbie and you.
The words of Blessed Carlo Acutis.
The Virgin Mary is the only woman in my life.
And this.
I offer all the suffering I have to suffer for the Lord, for the Pope, and the Church.
Here's one of G.K. Chesterton's great prophetic insights. He said, "You are free in our time to say that God does not exist. You're free to say that he exists and is evil. You may talk of God as a metaphor or a mystification, and it's not merely that nobody punishes, but nobody protests. But if you speak of God as a fact, as a thing like a tiger, a reason for changing one's conduct, then the modern world will stop you somehow if it can." We are long past talking about whether an unbeliever should be punished for being irreverent. It's now thought irreverent to be a believer.
Spend more time with the Apostle of Common Sense. Visit chesterton.org for more information and go to EWTNRC.com to discover more books and programs written and inspired by G.K. Chesterton.
Faith is a precious gift from God. As the largest religious media network in the world, EWTN has an important role in educating others about our Catholic faith and spreading the good news of salvation. We invite you to explore our numerous pages of historical faith documents, prayers, teachings, and other current issues in Catholicism today. Visit EWTN.com and click Catholicism. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Matt Swaim here. Tomorrow on the Sunrise Morning Show, we'll celebrate the Feast of St. Therese, the Little Flower, and take a look at the latest news, weather, sports, and a whole lot more. Now back to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
All right, here with Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Back to your phone calls in just a moment. We're going to be happy to welcome to the program Tina and John and others. We do have a couple lines open as we talk about the phenomenon of reality TV shows. Any thoughts you have on them? 833-288-3986. But Debbie, maybe we can get a couple of these social media comments that are coming in.
There's so many comments coming in, and you guys are writing really quickly, so we're going to try to get to as many as possible. Wayne says, "I don't understand why our culture takes pleasure in watching sin, dysfunction, and pain in others' daily lives, whether real or scripted." That is very true, Wayne. There is a certain fascination about that, to really be drawn into that. And that's what I was talking about earlier, real quickly, if I may say. I was sharing this with Jerry and Michael, our producer, on the break, that, a lot of these shows on the surface seem somewhat harmless, and they are. And that's how people justify and rationalize watching them. But please, you need to peel through the layers. You need to dissect it and realize there's an agenda there. There's an agenda, and it's not a healthy thing. And it's really not good for us as Catholic Christians most of the time. Some of these shows, I'm sure, are fine and harmless, but the others, like getting into watching people sin and dysfunction and pain in others, that's not what we're called to do as Catholic Christians. We're called to be Christ to others and to really help heal this world. Right, Jerry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've said I don't watch a lot of TV, especially reality shows, but I guess you would call a lot of the Food Channel shows reality shows. But there's one that I kind of like. That's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives with, what's his name, Guy Fieri or something? Because he's always got something super delicious to eat at the end of the episode. My sister, God rest her soul, used to get a lot of great recipe ideas off of the Food Network.
You're hilarious. You need to go on like a drive around the country to like different. You should be like a food critic.
Yeah, that would be fun. Take two on the road.
Catholic food critic.
Yeah.
That is hilarious. Who else do we have on social media you wanted to comment for?
Well, Laura, also watching on our Facebook channel, she said, I like to watch North Law. It's about the day-to-day job of what game wardens and conservation officers do, anywhere from rescuing hikers, catching and releasing wild animals and relocating them, as well as enforcing hunting, boating, and fishing laws so future generations can enjoy nature. She says, I have learned a lot on those types of shows.
Yeah, see, that's very interesting. Matt says, funny question, right on the premise alone. I've been on one, and he says it's 25% real.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, there's
Matt, you've been on one. Tell us, email us. We want to know, did you win? What round
probably
did you
not
go to?
if he says it's 25% real.
Yeah,
okay.
And Timoteo real quickly says about is reality shows real? No, it is not. If I'm correct, some such programs already have been proven that they are not truly reality. Yep, Timoteo, that's what we are processing right now with this conversation, and we're realizing that ourselves.
Okay, back to your calls, 833-288-3986. Tina, thank you for waiting in Ottawa, Canada, listening on Sirius XM 130. Welcome to the program, Tina.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking my call.
Mm-hmm.
So I do love some of them. Like you mentioned, the cooking shows and like the Great Baking Championships and things like that. They seem to highlight, great stories and comfort and love. And, there doesn't seem to be a huge accent on competition and things like that, even though it is. So I find those really great. The others, though, I find really highlight people's flaws. And, either it is scripted or not, what really I find disheartening is the outside of the actual show. It's all those Instagram attacks on people and the newspaper, the articles, the media, and, on Facebook and all that, where they destroy people's character. And it seems there's so many people that are writing and going about that and spreading, hatred and, I don't know, putting down people. I can't find the appropriate words, but I think you're getting the gist of what I'm saying. So, they're not focused positive in those things. It's all about drama, and it's all about really accentuating people's flaws or in comfort or those things. So, and then promoting that. This is what's really. I really dislike about all that.
Yeah, well, Tina, let me just comment on that. If you heard Emily earlier, our first caller who called back from yesterday, she was talking about this thing about what happens when these contestants or these participants in these reality shows, they have to deal with the rejection later on. And it's very interesting that you should be talking about this, because that's the reason why I put this show on the show calendar, because I read an article about Monica Lewinsky. Do you remember Monica Lewinsky and President Clinton? Okay. And she went on a TV show, and she was talking about a talk show, and she was explaining how one day she was a young, impressionable girl, and the next day the entire country hated her. And she said it was this incredible feeling inside of going, what do I do? Where do I go? How do I restore my life, my reputation? And I tried to put myself in her position when I was watching her, because you could see she was really even troubled talking about it. And in my opinion, she almost had a little form of PTSD or something, because you could tell she was troubled going back there, even talking about it. But here's the point. The world can be cruel, very cruel. You can do 100 things right, and you do one thing wrong, and everybody remembers it. My mother used to say this, God rest her soul. My mother used to say this all the time. You can never be perfect enough in this world. And I would never, I feel bad for people who do put themselves out there, in the Hollywood world or whatever, because they better have a very strong interior core, and you hope they have a strong faith, because I don't know how one would carry through, because that is very hard to deal with when somebody is chipping away at your character, your being, and there's nothing you can do. I mean, you can go out there saying, "Hey, I'm a good person. Hey, I'm not as heavy as I look on camera. Hey, all these things that they want to just ruin your life over." There's something wrong with that, and I think when we do that in order to capitalize and make money. That we don't make the money, but the big execs do, and the powers, those big powers that control the whole world, they're making money off of this. I mean, that's not of God. It's just not. It's that simple. There's something wrong with this, because Jesus would never ever want that for us. So I agree with you, Tina. That's what makes me sad as well.
And I look back at the shows that I had growing up and it was all about. It's about values, family values, and all those things. And I just find it unfortunate that today it's all about drama and really promoting that. And I don't see any of those shows with those really strong family values and moral values of teachings that I had back in my youth.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of youth, I was just pondering a little bit some of the shows that I actually used to watch a lot and really quite enjoy. And they could almost call them precursors to some of the things we see now. For example, the Newlywed Game. Anybody remember that? How about the Dating Game? I mean, we used to watch the Dating Game and get so excited when, he or she picked one of the three contestants, and then here they go traipsing off on a vacation after they've just shaken hands for the first time. This was well before my faith, was formed as it is now. But so, this is not necessarily something brand new. It's just like exploding and proliferating now, it seems like, in our day.
Absolutely. Well, the Newlywed Game, Jerry, you bring up a good point, and Tina, you probably, if you've read any magazines, you must have seen this. When they did a review of those early shows that seemed very harmless and kind of fun, entertaining shows, they actually caused a lot of problems in marriages. So it's very interesting. They did a review on all that, and so when you put people out there and you expect them to be the entertainment, and they're using their own faults and things that are happening and dysfunctions that they carry, that can be very hard on the spirit. I would believe, I'm not a psychologist or a trained therapist, but I would say that really takes a hit on their mind and their spirit, because that's tough to deal with. What do you think, Tina?
I think it validates bad behavior. So, or approves bad behavior of couples or people going through these things. And I just don't think it's right. So thank you for bringing this up, because it's something that's been on my heart and mind for a long time, these shows, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you just said something really important there, Tina. I just want to say this. Going back to Mother Teresa, she always had it spot on, and she said it very simply, but it was very deep and it hit home. Okay. When you look at something, if it is dividing people on camera, if it is bringing people down, that is not of God. That's not what God wants. We need to be building people up and letting them rise to their highest potential, their God-given potential. So when we shouldn't take, it shouldn't be fun or entertainment or glory in watching somebody else suffer. That is not, and we're seeing a lot of it. We're seeing it, I was seeing some of those pictures in Afghanistan of what's happening over there. And it's like the news media just goes, oh, this is what's happening, and now let's move on to this story. It's like, can we stop for a minute and pause? Can somebody say a prayer for these poor folks that are dealing with that right now? But everybody just moves on like it's no big deal, because I think we've been desensitized. Don't you think, Jerry?
Yeah, horrible things going on, especially for women. It always seems like the women get attacked the most, in certain cultural trends and phenomena like this. So anyway, Tina, thank you so much. Great contribution to the program. Please call again, will you?
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you. John in Columbus, Ohio next, listening also on Sirius XM 130. Hello, John. Thanks for your call.
Hi, thank you. I just want to talk about what's behind the scenes in these shows, without mentioning names. But there's a particular, I watch a lot of the cable programs, but there's a major production company that has a monopoly owns actually 8 stations, 8 substations. Many of these stations do carry some entertainment, such as outdoors, but they're very technical in the way they spread in my opinion, the filth and decadence that we see constantly, and especially in the younger people's minds. And what they've done is taking these, and it's of course the advertisement, which you mentioned. It's the advertising where the money is at, and then this because during the shows they will support these shows some way, somehow, abortion, transvestites, a lot of the things that are extremely sinful, and people who probably needs help, not to glorify or not to feel bad for them, but to help them through the devil's work, as I call it. So it's these programs, and at one time, as you well know, when they had a monopoly in the country, they broke up telephone companies. Well, what this major station is doing is they have a monopoly over 6 or 7 stations. And just a side note, during the campaign, when it was going on, none of these stations were allowed to air any of the opposition. It was all the Democrats, or social Democrats, as I call them, commercials and support. So it's very, they're lawyered up, and it's very devious in how they're seeding their false faith out there in regards to programming. And radio does it, but it doesn't have the impact in some instances as a TV does.
Yeah. Visual is certainly more powerful. And thanks, John, so much for the call. We appreciate that. The reality is if your doorbell rang and you opened it and there was Satan with his long, ugly tail and a pitchfork and horns and, I want to lead you to hell, you would slam the door shut and say, never, never, never. The fact is, though, as St. Paul writes in let's see, what is this? This is 1 Corinthians, I believe, chapter 11, 2 Corinthians chapter 11. He says in verse 13, "For such people are false prophets, deceitful workers, masquerading as apostles of Christ." Verse 14, "And no wonder, for Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light." And he says, "It is not surprising then if his servants also masquerade as servants of righteousness. Their end will be what their actions deserve." There's always a side door for that filth and decadence to come in that you talked about, John. It doesn't come in the front door. It doesn't make a big showy entrance of itself, but it's always very, very subtle, as we've already talked about a little bit today, Debbie.
So true, Jerry. Any final comments, John?
You hit on it right on the head in regards to, unfortunately, the way it works today. So that's why thank you for EWTN, and pray for you all the time. Keep on battling.
Thank you, John.
God bless you.
You're in our prayers, too.
That is so true, though, John. It is a battle. It is a battle, and we're facing that spiritual warfare, and it's hitting people. I just got off the phone this morning with somebody that I really, truly trust. He's a really good man of God, and he was saying the same thing. We're in a tough war. We got to soldier up.
Yeah, and John anticipated my next comment, and that was going to be, folks, you have alternatives. We're not saying throw your TV set out the window. We're not saying don't watch TV. We're not even saying don't watch reality shows if you can find some redeeming value in some of them, some healthy ones. But really, we have to make part of our media consumption be EWTN television, EWTN radio, because these are the things that are going to keep us balanced, especially in this world that wants to knock us off our balance and get us sort of disoriented in terms of where we're going in life. All of a sudden we find ourselves sort of, what do you call it, divided, with a divided heart, kind of no longer single-minded just for Christ, but these things can get in there and really impact us spiritually in some harmful ways.
Well, so speaking of that, if you turn on entertainment on Sunday night, how about this instead? Okay, how about this instead? Catholic Answers Live, the best of, and it's on Sunday night, 6 p.m. Eastern. Cy Kellett takes your calls and talks with some of the leading apologists and theologians in the church today. EWTN is the exclusive radio home for Catholic Answers Live. So maybe grab the family and listen to Catholic Answers Live, the best of on Sunday night, instead of turning on the trash TV, right, Jerry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cindy is watching the Facebook channel of EWTN. Hi, Cindy. She said, I found out my niece was on a show called Naked and Afraid. She said she did it because they paid well and thought she could get into TV as an actress. It did not work out, and it became an embarrassment for her when auditioning for a job.
Oh,
so it kind of followed her wherever she went after that. That's
I've
see,
actually
you were
Go ahead.
You were talking about that.
Well,
you
that's what I'm
you can't
saying.
scrub it, is what you were saying. Yeah,
it stays with you. It stays with you, and then how do you recover? This is why we know this. Jerry and I know this because we have a lot of coaching. We have a lot of life coaching clients. Okay, people have a lot of things that they're carrying along with them into jobs and future relationships and things they want to do, but the past keeps haunting them. I always tell people, don't put anything on Facebook. I always tell kids, especially when I'm speaking to teens, if you're going to put something on Facebook, make sure you realize that it's there forever. And they will say to me, "Oh no, Deb, there's these things get taken down. No, it's there forever." Right, Jerry?
Yeah, for sure. Another genre of reality shows that we haven't really touched upon, but Zane, who's watching on Facebook, said, my aunt is hooked on judge shows. She thinks Judge Judy and the People's Court are real. Zane says she no longer goes to daily mass as she used to. That's unfortunate. We will definitely pray for your Aunt Zane, and thanks for contributing to the discussion today.
Absolutely. We would definitely pray. And I'm adding to the book, too. Everybody that's calling in, I'm adding to the book. Okay, we have time to go back to the phones, and we're going back to Virginia, not in the state of Virginia, but her name is Virginia, in Long Beach, California. Watching on YouTube, we're waving to you, Virginia. Hi, and welcome. Hello, Virginia.
Hello, Virginia.
Is she not there? I didn't hear anything.
I don't hear anything. Yeah, maybe Matt can check back with her.
Yes, Matt, would you check with Virginia? We'll move on to Christina in Ontario, Canada, listening on the EWTN app. Christina, are you there?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
Great.
How are you?
Good, thanks. I just wanted to make the comment that I think these reality TV shows are especially degrading to women, and they just really are destructive, and they show a bad example to families. And I just think back to like the Kardashians when it first came out. You look at some of the girls there, like they were just so naturally pretty, and then if you look at them today, they're just look like these plastic dolls. The beauty is just so unrealistic, and I think it just shows a bad example. These housewife shows, it's all about money, clothes, all materialistic things, and I just think like examples that are just unrealistic, and their families are just not great examples, and it's just trash.
Well, here's what's interesting, what you're sharing, Christina. I completely agree with you. And I think I talked about the Kardashians, like they were on for 10 years or something. Do you know their followers are in the hundreds of millions? I mean, it's unbelievable. And people are so attracted to their journey. And you're right about this idea of when you look at them when they were teenagers or when they were young adults, they were so innocent and beautiful, and they just had an inner glow about them. And you're right, now with plastic surgery and all sorts of fillers and Botox and everything, they look very plastic because they're trying to keep up that image. And it's exactly what we were talking about. What's really sad about that is what is truly going on inside. That's what I actually pray for all these reality, quote unquote, TV stars, that they really will find their inner purpose and understanding about themselves and how God created them and what God wanted for their life, so that they can feel whole inside. Because I think that candy shell or that plastic shell that's on the outside, that is just to make sure they can be accepted by the world, which it can be very cruel. I really don't believe in my heart of hearts that anybody could rest their head on the pillow at night thinking, wow, that's great. I really, I feel so great about myself, because, you have to come to, what's the word? An integration. You have to be able to be integrated enough to understand who you are and whose you are. Right, Christina? And I feel bad. I really do. I know they have, buku bucks and they got millions of followers, but I actually feel bad for them internally. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree, and I just think it trickles down into mainstream. Like, you even look at, you walk down the street and you see girls, they're not even 30, and you can tell that they're trying to, they look plastic themselves, and it's just like, what is important to people nowadays? And I think people are empty inside, and we turn towards these people, and they've become what we're spending our time on, and it's just really, it's really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. Well,
there's so much they could be doing with their platform.
Yes.
There's so much they could be doing, and it's just unfortunate that that's what they choose, and that they don't see the negativity in it.
Right. Well, yeah. And here's the other thing. I had read once that I think one of the Kardashians suffers from anxiety. Another one suffers from depression. We wonder why. I mean, so, you've got these people that are really struggling emotionally and psychologically. Why is that happening if they have all the millions and the followers? Jerry, you have a comment.
Yeah, and I just forgot what it was.
You were going to say they wouldn't have the platform.
Oh, right. Yeah, you mentioned Christina. If they would use their platform for good. The problem is, say if they had some kind of a moral conversion, their moral compass, their spiritual compass changed toward God or whatever. I mean, they wouldn't have that platform. I don't think. That's the reason that people do, and they're used in so many ways, as we're talking about here. And as you're talking about how much this impacts women, it impacts a lot of young people. But I think of young girls today, especially, who just dress in such a way that they're screaming, "Love me, love me, love me, somebody love me." And all they do is get used, by the young boys and so forth, and young boys are having a problem with self-esteem and self-respect too. So, yeah, so much could be said about that.
Absolutely, in society. But you talk about the going back to the Kardashians, not to pick on them, but they airbrush every single photo, and I understand that one of the Kardashians went around and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars taking photos off the streets because one of them, the grandmother released one of them that wasn't touched up. Can you believe that? Can you imagine spending hundreds of thousands of dollars because the grandmother just innocently sent out a picture of one of the Kardashian girls? I mean, and it wasn't touched up. It didn't go through the lawyers.
Christina, thanks for the call. We're getting set to hear that lovely music. There it is from Michael, our producer. We want to thank Jeff Burson, our social media manager, Matt Gabensky on the phones. Jean in Carroll, Iowa said, tomorrow will be 1 year since I got rid of the TV. Jean, I wish we could have gotten you on the program. That would have been a fascinating call. But you hear the music. That signals the end of today's Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. But tomorrow, Debbie, we want people to get their prayer intentions ready.
The first of the month, we dedicate it to prayer. It's whom or what are you praying for? It's a very, very active show. We need you to call in early and stay with us and send your comments in. We pray together through the entire month for the Take Two family, all their prayer needs and intentions. So that is tomorrow on the first day of October. Until then, we want to wish you a beautiful and blessed day in the year of St. Joseph. St. Joseph, please pray for us. Amen.
Lawmakers share the stories of Americans abandoned in Afghanistan.